It's funny. Sometimes the oldest stories have the most powerful answers for the questions we're asking right now. Today, we're diving into an ancient story that gets right to the heart of a question we all have to face eventually. Not what we should own, but how we should live. So imagine this. Thousands of years ago, a powerful king named Parikshit gets some shocking news. He has exactly 7 days left to live. So for him, the question, how to live, wasn't just some philosophical thought experiment. It was urgent. What do you do when you know the clock is ticking down to zero? And the answer he got from a great sage was, well, shockingly simple. It wasn't about performing some complicated ceremony or giving everything up. Nope. The answer was a journey inward, a path of pure, heartfelt devotional service. This path has a name, Bhakti Yoga. Now, when we hear yoga, our minds usually jump straight to physical poses and breathing exercises, right? But in this context, Bhakti Yoga is described as the ultimate spiritual path because it's not about discipline or control, it's all about connection. It's the yoga of building a real, loving relationship with the divine. So, how does this actually work? Well, here's the roadmap for our explainer today. We're going to look at why this path is called the Supreme One, then break down its 3 key practices: hearing, glorifying, and remembering. And finally, we'll see what the ultimate goal of all this really is. So what's the big deal about this path of the heart? Why is it considered so special? Well, the idea is that it's the most direct way to spiritual happiness, and it's open to absolutely anyone, no matter who you are or where you're at in life. To really get it, let's compare it to something more familiar, Ashtanga Yoga. Now, Ashtanga is an amazing system of postures, breathing, and deep meditation. It's a path of incredible discipline. But Bhakti Yoga is presented as being even more direct, you could say, because it taps into the heart's natural desire to love and connect. It's less about procedure and more about a relationship, which makes the whole journey feel joyful. So this entire path is really built on 3 simple but super powerful activities. Shravanam, which is hearing, Kirtanam, which is glorifying, and Smaranam, remembering. Sounds easy enough, but each one of these steps is packed with power. Let's dig into them. Everything kicks off with the simple act of listening. And we're not talking about just letting sound go in one ear and out the other. This is about really absorbing sacred stories and truths with a totally open heart. And King Parikshit is our prime example. Think about it. With only 1 week left to live, what did he do? He didn't rush to build a monument or win one last battle. He just sat down by a river and listened. That's it. His only activity was to hear about the glories of the divine. And get this, the power of his listening was so incredible. It didn't just affect him. It actually transformed the person telling the stories. The sage, Sukadeva Goswami, started out with a more abstract, impersonal view of the divine. But as he kept speaking these stories for the king, his own heart was completely captivated, and he became a pure devotee himself, just from narrating. Okay, so what happens next is really cool. This internal act of hearing starts to express itself outwardly. The second step, Kirtanam, is all about glorifying. This could be through song, chanting, or even through actions that celebrate these divine stories. And there's maybe no story more epic to illustrate this than the churning of the ocean of milk. I mean, this is a massive tale about gods and demons actually working together on a cosmic quest to find the nectar of immortality. The scale here is just mind-blowing. You have the demigods pulling on one side, the demons on the other. For a churning rod, they use a literal mountain, and for the rope, a giant serpent king. All of this just to churn the entire cosmic ocean to get this one prize. But they hit a snag pretty early on. The mountain was so gigantic that it started sinking into the ocean floor. The whole mission was about to fail before it even started. But just then, Lord Vishnu himself jumped in, taking the form of a colossal tortoise to hold the entire mountain on his back. So the churning starts up again, but then something awful happens. Before any nectar appears, a horrifying, deadly poison bubbles up from the ocean. This stuff was so toxic it was about to wipe out the entire universe. As you can imagine, everybody started freaking out. Seeing that the entire universe was about to be destroyed, Lord Shiva stepped forward. He didn't even hesitate. He just gathered up all that poison and drank it himself, holding it in his throat, which turned blue. He saved everyone, showing that the greatest glory comes from selfless sacrifice for others. So after hearing these incredible stories and glorifying them, the practice moves inward. Smarnam, or remembering, is the art of keeping the divine in your mind and heart all the time. Not like a chore, but like thinking about someone you truly love. And honestly, there's no better example of this constant remembrance than the gopis of Vrindavan. Their love for Krishna was so incredibly pure and intense that they're held up as the highest examples of what devotion can be. There's this one famous night where they were all in a celestial dance with Krishna, and suddenly, he was gone. He disappeared right from the middle of the dance. But instead of getting angry or giving up, they were just completely overwhelmed by this intense feeling of separation. Their longing was so powerful that they started wandering through the forest, asking the trees and the river if they'd seen him. They began to act out his pastimes, becoming him, feeling him in their memory. Their plea, "Your separation is torturing us, please protect us now," wasn't just a sentence. It was the cry of hearts that were 100% focused on the one they loved. Okay, so we've heard, we've glorified, and we've remembered. So what's the end game? Where does all this lead? Well, the ultimate goal is a state of pure, nonstop love. And the real power of this path is that it works, even if you don't do it perfectly. And there's this wild story to prove it about a man named Ajamila. He had lived a really rough life, fallen far from any spiritual path. So as he's on his deathbed, the messengers of death literally show up to collect him. He is absolutely terrified. And here's the twist. In his panic, Ajamila cries out the name of his youngest, most beloved son, and his son's name just happened to be Narayana, which is also a name for Lord Vishnu. Now, he wasn't thinking about God at all, just his kid, but the name itself was so powerful that divine messengers instantly appeared and saved him. And that really brings us to the final thought to leave you with. The story of Ajamila shows that even an unintentional, accidental call to the divine has enough power to completely change someone's destiny. Which poses a pretty amazing question. If an accidental call has that much power, what could a deliberate one that is full of focus, attention, and love, actually achieve?